Hello everyone. Hope you guys are doing well. Yeah. So in last class, we were doing the parts of the specimen one. We're close to the completion, right? We have solved it greatly. Yeah. We did the heat map one part, right? We did the heat map part, right? Now we have to go on to the other questions. We'll try to complete this paper by today, right? And so we can have some strategy for the upcoming exam. That specimen 2 we are going to solve. See, we did question 1, B, C, D completely. 2A is completely solved. 2A is completely solved, right? Now 2B. See what they have asked you. They have asked you to that you are reviewing the spreadsheet prepared by your colleague Freddie Lithium, right? You have are reviewing the spreadsheet prepared by your colleague Freddie Lithium, which evaluates the strategic choices facing DCS company. So this is you evaluating the strategic choices, right, in the next 3 years to ensure its validity in supporting your recommendation in the consultancy report. Now, critically evaluate the contents of the spreadsheet, including any assumptions made. Now, you have to evaluate that spreadsheet, right? And I guess there's an exhibit allocation can be done here, that there was a exhibit 5 which evaluates the future strategies, right, that would have been considered by the DCS company board. So they've asked you to evaluate those strategies, right, and then prepare some key recommendations for the consultancy report using appropriate evidence, right? Now, 5 marks and 2 marks for professional skills. That's skepticism and commercial acumen. Now skepticism, I would say, is very easy to be applied, right? If examiner has not written the skepticism, if examiner has not written the skepticism here, we would automatically have been applied the skepticism here, right? We would automatically have applied skepticism here. Why, sir? Because this question raises the answer in its flow that you automatically would apply skepticism in this particular question, right? You automatically are going to apply skepticism in this particular question. See, critically evaluate the contents of the spreadsheet, including any assumption made by DCS company board, and skills marks are available for demonstrating skepticism skill. The skills marks are available for demonstrating skepticism skills, right? 5 marks and then 2 marks. 5 marks and then 2 marks, right? See, so again, we need to go on to the spreadsheet which have been given to us. That's it, right? So an evaluation of the strategic choices. We would get back to the exhibit 5 and then we'll be solving that exhibit, right? See, first strategy is to refocus. The refocus strategy is data communication is 1.5, and that's network and supply. So total for strategy 1 is this. Strategy 2 is realignment, right? Strategy 2 is realignment, and they have given us the probability of all the strategies, right? They have given us the expected value, I would say. So expected value of the network growth. If anyone has covered F9, or I'll say FM exam, or I'll say AFM exam, right? Or I'll say AFM exam. If anyone has covered that, it would automatically give you the idea of expected value, right? Similarly, data communication, they have assumed 10% decline. So incremental cash contribution in this strategy is this. Then we have expected growth for the annual fixed cost, right? So expected value of the fixed cost, cash fixed cost savings, which we have got, that was given in the question. Then net additional fixed cost, cash contribution, incremental fixed cost, right? Incremental net cash contribution from strategy 2. So here it is, and cumulative payback period is 2 years and 11 months. Cumulative payback period is 2 years and 11 months, right? So it's like that, right? It's like that. Now, See here, you have to apply skepticism, right? You have to challenge them. You have to ask them that why they didn't consider any third strategy, just like why they didn't consider the nothing strategy or the do nothing strategy, right? Why they didn't consider that. Ask them why the hell they didn't consider that, right? Where they got these probabilities from. You're challenging them, right? Why they've assumed the 10% decline, any source of that 10% decline, right? Any source of that 10% decline. You haven't got that. You haven't got that, right? So these are the questions which you need to make in this particular question, right? And again, we have 5 marks. So that was particularly the difficult DS requirement and student faces. If the teacher is not guiding them, they won't be able to skepticize this, right? So it's one of the difficult requirement. Therefore, I have taken a separate class to solve this so that you should be free, right, for attempting this. So 2A, and now we're going on to B, right? Now we are going on to B, and that's part one. To B, and that's part one, right? So we would say the given table makes number of assumptions, right? They have asked you to challenge their assumptions. If you read the question carefully, they have asked you to challenge the assumptions. The given table makes number of assumptions, and these are as follows. And these are as follows. Now, what are they? Just let them know, right? First thing, that the do nothing strategy, the do nothing strategy is not considered an option, right? So the do nothing strategy is not even considered an option. Now ask them why. Ask them why they did this, right? Why they did this, right? Option by the board. Yep. So the do nothing strategy is not considered an option by the board, and you should ask them why. A reasonable financial analysis would have confirmed that this is a viable option or not, right? So here directly we have applied the skepticism. You just see that here directly the skepticism is applied, right? Here directly the skepticism is applied, right? Similarly, other assumptions. See, initially you have mentioned the assumptions here. So any other assumptions? Yeah, the decline in revenue. The decline in revenue. Why you have estimated the decline, right? The decline in revenue of 10% requires valid justification, right? Requires valid justifications, right? As they are indicative, as they are indicative of future trends, right? In cash contribution. They are indicating the cash, right? So they requires valid justification here. Now asking this is again in skepticism, right? So future trends in cash contribution, right? In cash contribution. Apparently no justification is given, right? Apparently no justification is given, right? Apparently no justification is given here, right? What could other points, right? What could other points we could raise here? Similarly, assuming fixed cost to be constant. Now here, an element of questions needs to be raised, right? So assuming fixed cost to be uh, uh, being constant, for all 3 years, at least they must be upgraded to the inflation, right? If you can see that they have kept they kept uh, fixed costs being constant, right? See, they are the constant, right? They are the constant things right here. So being constant for all 3 years, right? Being constant for all 3 years here, right? You could challenge this. In real terms, the fixed cost would change year by year. It would change year by year, and it would be, now see the skepticism, the best skepticism, the recommendation stage, right? And it would be better assumption at least update fixed cost at inflationary level, right? Update fixed cost at inflationary level, right? At inflationary level, right? Update fixed cost at inflationary level, right? So that would be a better thing. Now here, the recommending phase, that's perfect skepticism, which examiner likes that much, right? Which examiner likes that much. I'm circling the parts in which the skepticism is applied, right? Similarly, also the fixed cost savings are assumed to be constant if volumes of data components business, if volume of data components business grows, it would give it would give greater savings, considering the same savings over the years seems inappropriate. Seems inappropriate. Seems inappropriate, right? Also, other issues, yeah, the time value of money. The time value of money is not accounted for in spreadsheet, that also seems to be an issue, right? The time value of money is not accounted for. The time value of money is not accounted for in spreadsheet. In spreadsheet, it's not accounted for in spreadsheet, right? The cash flows would be required to discounted at cost of capital, which considers which considers risks, right, of business, which considers risks of business, right? Now, any examiner likes when you correct them, right? Examiner likes if you correct them, examiner really love it, right? So see, they have given you they have given you the incremental net cash contribution, right? They have given you the incremental net cash contribution, right? So now what you need to do, you need to just realign, or I'll say convert that in present value, right? Examiner likes it. Examiner, I would say, loves it to identify a mistake. Examiner loves it, right? And rectify it. And rectify it, right? If you're rectifying its mistake, examiner would give you a greater pass mark, right? A greater pass marks if you are just rectifying, right? So we just need a cost of capital. We just need a cost of capital here. So just look if we have got any cost of capital. If we have got any cost of capital, what I remember is they've given us in any particular data, they might have given us, right? Or we could be able to calculate it. That would also be a great thing, right? If we would be able to calculate it, it would be a great thing, right? But what I remember is that they have given us the cost of capital. They have given us, right? So take care from the start. Skim through the pages. Not in the requirements, right? See here, 10% year-on-year decline is given, right? In this report, probably cost of capital should be given, right? In this report, probably cost of capital should be given. Yeah, see here it is currently geared at a cost of capital of 12%. So here it is, it's given. Now see, examiner would love it. Examiner would love it if I could identify them the correct present values, right? I could identify and I could give them the correct present values, right? Some students have asked that whether the financial management knowledge is tested in it. Yeah, it's tested, right? The F9 level knowledge is definitely tested, right? In SBL. So net incremental cash flow, and that's minus 0.09, minus 0.018. And what was next? What was next? it's 0.117, right? 0.117. So now discount factor, I would say the formula is 1/1 plus r raised to power n, right? So the discount factor here would be just calculated. I'll just calculate it on mobiles, right? You can calculate that on calculator. 1 plus 1. Raised to power 2. So it's for the first year, it seems raised to power 1 would be 0.892 here, and raised to power 2 would be 0.797. Talk about 3 digits, right? And 0.711. I just incorporated here r equals to 12%, and equals to years, right? So it's gonna be 0.09 into 0.892. It's 0.080 minus 1, right? 0.018 into 0.797. So it's going to be minus 0.014, and 0.117 into 0.711. So it's 0.083. So let's just deduct 0.014 minus 0.080. So it's round. NPV is around minus 0.011. Or if we could convert it into millions, so it seems to be 11,000, right? It seems to be 11,000. Now see, examiner loves this. Examiner loves this, right? So this means strategy 2, that's a realignment, right? Has a negative NPV of $11,000, which means it's not feasible strategy for DCS, right? Apparently, it seems it's not that much feasible. But although we have part 2 to be covered, right? In part 2, we are going to give recommendations on basic steps, right? So here, the realignment strategy doesn't add that much, right? The realignment strategy doesn't add that much because refocus is something right trade going, and then realignment strategy 2 versus strategy 1, it seems a no favor, right? Now let's read part 2 here. Let's read part 2 here, right? Was that prepared some key recommendations for the consultancy report. Again, no format here, right? Or the same format we could use, but there's no format separately asked, right? So appropriate supporting evidence to advise which of the 2 strategies DCS should implement. Now you have to give supporting elements for 5 marks. Now you have to give valid basis, which they have missed, right? Now, what we could do, we could just start with a, now here your commercial sense would prevail, right? Here the requirement, even if skill is not being tested, the commercial acumen, if it's not tested, the automatic skill that has been applied in this requirement is commercial acumen, right? Is commercial acumen will prevail here, because you have to justify your sense here that which strategy, if you would be having that particular position, what you would have been doing. So the pure financial evaluation, the pure financial evaluation in B above shows that, or I'll say above shows that, right, it shows that DCS should not, DCS should not realign, that DCS should not realign towards higher value, right? Towards higher value, more differentiated, more differentiated network support segment, right? That was the strategy. Network support segment, right? Now, but sometimes not only financial evaluation is considered, the broader benefits, right? You could write about the broader benefits that we would be expanding our horizons in a new market if we would just refocus. So that means we are operating in the same market and applying our capabilities at the next level, right? But you could ask here that you should not be just considering the financial evaluation, right? So, however, now you challenge your own statement, right? Strategic, however, strategic and broader business benefits, right? And broader business benefits, right? And broader business benefits to be gained from, to be gained from realigning would help. Now, what's that gonna? You have to justify the selections, right? So would help DCS becoming a differentiator, right? It would help DCS becoming a differentiator here, right? DCS becoming a differentiator here, right? We could say mm, along with that, along with that, DCS could operate uh, in the same market, right? In the same market, actively being high volume, low margin, right? Being high volume, low margin business. So that means being a differentiator, you could also focus on your, being a differentiator, you could also focus on your existing business, right? That means refocus is part of realignment. If you're just doing refocusing, that means you are just focusing on that previous era you have been, right? But if you're focusing on realignment, if you're focusing on realignment, that means you're going on to the new horizons. And along with that, you have been able, and along with that, you have been able to focus on the existing products you are going to offer, right? Existing products you are going to offer, right? So that means it would give you an idea of the both strategies, not just focusing on one particular segment, not just focusing on one particular segment, right? Now, from the data in spreadsheet, analyze something from the data, right? From the data in spreadsheet, you could analyze several things there. You could analyze several things there. And that's this network supply and support, right? It's part of the fixed cost, right? It's part of the fixed cost, right? If you could see any other particular cost here, yeah, any other particular cost here, so it's cost of sales that have been increased, that increased such higher with higher proportion, right? With higher proportions, right? So 4.75, 6.80, the revenue is increasing, but the cost is increasing, uh, greaterly, right? So in exhibit 3, I would say spreadsheet uh, of exhibit 3, of exhibit 3, of exhibit 3, it seems that, right, it seems that manufacturing cost is one of the key problem for DCS. The key problem for DCS, as it have increased, or it has increased in higher levels, in higher proportion than revenues, right? Than revenues. So you could write that, right? DCS need to consider options to save uh, cost of manufacturing. How they could save that, right? By expanding supplier network. They currently deal with, right, only one supplier, so they could expand their supplier network here. Now, this is commercial sense, right? They could expand their supplier network, right? Bulk purchases, etc. That's how you could save your cost, right? That's how you could save your cost, right? Also, DCS could be uh, a provider of disruptive, right, technology. I've taught that in Silver. Disruptive technology could be a provider of disruptive technology in market, rather than getting impacted by disruptors, rather than getting impacted by disruptors, right? Rather than getting impacted by disruptors. Considering big data in its product determination would be would be allowing DCS gaining competitive advantage, right? So usage of big data at DCS would be allowing them to get competitive advantage, rather than their competitors should use that and get the competitive advantage, right? Rather than DCS gaining competitive advantage, right? So use that resources, be a disruptor rather than get impacted by the disruptor, right? So be a disruptor rather than getting impacted by the disruptor, right? So that's particularly the case, right? Now see how I would justify the realignment strategy. Now see how I would justify the realignment strategy, that although, now here comes the conclusion, right? Here comes the conclusion, right? Although DCS would face negative NPV. DCS would face negative NPV, right, of 11,000 for next 3 years, right? We have considered the next 3 years, not beyond that, right? Not beyond that, right? So next 3 years, right, which does not satisfy the strategy, which does not satisfy the strategy on financial grounds, right? Which does not satisfy the strategy, which does not satisfy the strategy on financial grounds, right? However, if cash flows beyond 3 years are considered, right? Our cash flow beyond 3 years are considered. The resultant could be different, right? The resultant here could be different. The resultant here could be a different observation, right? The resultant here could be a different observation, right? Uh, Specifically, in the third year, the growth possesses, right, as evidence by a spreadsheet of Freddie. So why not? You are asking them to consider the cash flows beyond 3 years, right? The cash flows beyond 3 years, right? It could be assumed that the business could grow. The business could grow at the same pace. The business could grow at the same pace, right? So you could ask them that the business could grow at the same pace. So it's beneficial, I guess, right? It's beneficial, I guess. So the business could grow at the same pace uh, and would make DCS an innovative sector. So it would allow DCS to be the innovators, right? It would allow DCS that would be the innovators. Now, therefore, now to end, considering considering refocus or realignment, right? Considering refocus and realignment, what's going to be the reason, right? DCS would be DCS would be advised DCS would be advised to to implement, right? DCS would be advised to implement the realignment of the business. So DCS would be uh, advised to implement the realignment, right? And focus on expanding, network support side, although the NPV is negative, but we are asking them to do that, right? We are asking them to network support side, spending network support side of the business by investing in necessary items at a staff cost, at anything. So they could just ask to grow by investing in the necessary items, right? They could be asked to grow by investing in the necessary items, right? So now this was one particular difficultiest requirement, and we have got that, and we have got that perfectly, right? And we have got that perfectly. Any questions till now, guys? Students attempting live class, could ask the questions on the Zoom chat box. Students attempting recording lectures, they could just text me. They could just text me on WhatsApp. Right? So now the last requirement finally. See, this was our plan, right? To complete the 3 DCS, the 3 specimens, right? Which we are near to completion of first and the second and third, and then the marking inside block, right? So after this, we will be habitual of attempting the SBL papers, right? We will be habitual of attempting the SBL papers. And that's going to be great here, right? That's going to be great here. So we got this. Now, next requirement, what is it? Let's have a look. That's also done. And now we go to this prox 18 marks questions are left, right? Prox 18 marks questions are left. Guys, they are asking you to use appropriate analysis, right? Stakeholder analysis model, and categorize them into the power and interest, right? Engaging them and them should have changed after DCS being a public company. Now, what they want you to compare the power and interest. Now, what exactly they want, right? It's the perfect general requirement. They want you to compare the power and interest of shareholders, employees, and lenders, of shareholders, employees, and lenders before. They want you to compare the power and interest before flotation and after flotation. Like before flotation, what was the power and what was the interest of shareholder? And after flotation to the public company, like before, like when it's private company and when it's public company, you need to compare all 3 stakeholders. You need to compare all 3 stakeholders. And then staff satisfaction survey, that was a misconducted item right here. That was the misconducted item, that they just didn't met the confidentiality rules. They didn't met the confidentiality rules, right? And they just broke out the information of the survey. So we need to do that. And before that, I'll obviously give you a stakeholder model review. Give you stakeholder model review. That's the Mendelow's models, right? That Mendelow's model. So let's just do that first. And then we'll be making the answer, right? So on which page I've highlighted that model? Page number 124. So let's go to page number 124 for my book. Is 4. Let's go on to the page number 124. So here it is. Stakeholder mapping model by Mendelow. Now, what just it says, right? I'm writing the done here because once we have completed that, and we'll be reading the theory, so I won't cover this, right? So I won't cover this. And why I won't cover this? Because it was already taught you while solving past papers, right? It was already covered by solving past papers. So now power is on the x-axis here. Power is on the x-axis and interest is on the y-axis, right? And interest is on the y-axis, right? So see, Mandelo suggested you that you have to place your stakeholders, and then you'll get the strategy. You'll get the strategy what to do with them. You'll get the strategy. You will get the strategy that what to do with them. You will get that. You will get that. Now, what you are doing, see, if your stakeholder has high power, if your stakeholder has high power and high interest in you, that means the stakeholder has the highest power and he is also taking the interest in the activities of yours, right? If your company, that means not in you, obviously. If your stakeholder has a high power and a high interest, if your stakeholder has a high power and high interest, so that means if your stakeholder has high power and high interest, so that means he's your key player. He's your major shareholder. See, if I would be, I would have been a major shareholder, right? So that means I have the power of that entity and I have the interest of that entity because I have invested them. So therefore, I'm taking interest on that entity also. Therefore, I'm taking interest on that entity also, right? So it's major shareholders, right? It's major shareholder and they are the key players of yours, right? They are the key players of yours, right? Similarly, if any stakeholder that has high power, any stakeholder that has high power but low interest, they have high power, they could just destroy you, but they are not taking interest that much in you. And who are they? They're probably the institutional investors, those who have invested in many entities, right? Those who have invested in many entities with great sums, right? With great sums. So that means, if they have invested that much, they could have the high power, they could destroy you, right? But they are not taking the interest because they have many companies. Because they have many companies, right? Then low power and high interest. Now, those type of stakeholders, those who have very high power, those type of stakeholders, those who have very high power, but very low interest, very high interest, but low power, right? I was telling the vice versa. They have high level of interest, but they have low level of power, right? They have high level of interest, but they have low level of power. So since they have high level of interest, you could ask them for the keep informed phase, right? You could just inform them. Why? Because they are the interested ones in your organization. They are the interested ones in your organization. So you could ask them, you could give them briefer idea. You could make them keep informed one, right? They're the keep informed because they're taking the interest in your organization. So you should be informing them by public disclosure and all that. And those who haven't have any power, right? And those who haven't have any power, those who haven't have any power, and those who haven't have any interest, they are the minimal effort ones because they are not possessing any interest and they are not using any powers. They don't even have the powers, right? Just kind of pressure groups, the groups whom no one follows, right? If they have the followers, they have high power. But if the group is new, they do not have any power, right? Similarly, individual shareholders, if I bought one share, I could not just influence the company with my powers, right? I have just one share. So it gives you a strategy that what to do with the shareholders or the stakeholders, those who have high power, high interest, right? What to do with the stakeholders, those who have high power, high interest. What to do with the stakeholder, those who have low power, high interest, low power, low interest, and low interest and high power, right? So you could just have a look into it. It was an easy model. CSR is being taught to you already. It's also a done one. Now, let's go to attempt the question. Now, let's go to attempt the question. let's go to attempt the question. So it's I'll say 3A, the requirement name, stakeholder. I guess I've taught this model in the cheap kit also. There was also a question pertaining to stakeholder, right? So that stakeholder analysis. Stakeholder analysis, right? So now see, consider requirement in your brain. Consider requirement in your brain every time. Consider requirement in your brain every time. So you have to compare before and after. You have to compare that, right? So using Mendelov matrix, right? Using Mendelov matrix, it can be established that before DCS was listed, it had following stakeholder groups, right? So do that, I'll say shareholders, right? And who are the shareholders of them, right? Private shareholders, right? We would say private shareholders or founders of the company. What could the other stakeholders can be? The employees, right? The employees here. And who were the employees here, right? Who were the employees here? So it's unionized and loyal to family business, right? The employees of the private firms are loyal to the family business. They usually are the loyal ones, right? Then lenders. Who were the lenders, right? Who were the lenders? So it's before they were private, so they were insignificant borrowings, right? Insignificant borrowings. And it's when it was, I'll say, before listed. And it was before listed, right? Now, after listing. Now, after listing, what's here? Before listing and after listing. What could be the changes here, right? What could be the changes here? Just think of it. Just think of it. What could be the changes here? Just think of it, guys. Think of it, right? Now, wider public, because now they are listed, right? So there will be a wider public being your shareholder, right? Because now you are listed, and once you are listed, anyone can buy your shares, right? Anyone can buy your shares, right? Similarly, employees, more skilled staff would be hired, right? More skilled staff would be hired, right? More skilled staff would be hired, right? And lenders, uh, more borrowings, more covenants, more covenants, right? More covenants here, right? Now, in Mendelov model, because they have asked you to follow the model. So in Mendelov model, I would say before listing and after listing. Before listing and after listing. Now you have to categorize, right? You have to categorize these three. you have to categorize these three, right? These three. How would you categorize it? How would you categorize it? Just let us know. So before listing, I would say the shareholders, high power and high interest, right? Why? You could say high power, low interest. That's totally on you. Your answer and my answer could be different, but we both should have valid justification, right? But we both should have valid justification, right? But after listing, but after listing, uh, since there will be many people, so I would say low power, but since they have invested their fund, it could be high interest. They have low power, but they could be high interest, right? But they could be high interest, right? And similarly, while employees are low power, low interest, I would say, or high interest, sorry, because they don't have that much power. Power is on the owner's hand, but since they are employees, right? Since they are employees, right? But after listing, since there are a greater number of employees, so high power and high interest, if they left, your listing could go down, right? If they left, your listing could go down, right? The lenders, there was not much lenders, right? So low power, low interest, there was not much. But here, again, now lenders have increased and their powers have been increased, right? And they have also incorporated covenants on you. They have also incorporated covenants on you. So that means they are also having high power, high interest. They are also having high power, high interest, right? So here we go. Now you have to define this complete story. Now you have to define this complete story uh, by writing, I'll say, right? By writing, I'll say. So shareholders. Now, what to define here? Shareholders. Now, what to define here? So see, clearly before listing, now you have to define the story of that model. Just that, right? In three or four liners, you just have to define that, right? So clearly before flotation or before listing, private owners were the shareholders, right? Private owners were the shareholders, right? Would have far more, would have far more power and interest, right? Would have far more power and interest, right? Then post listing majority shareholders, right? Because now the number of shareholders would have gone increase, so they would not possess that much power. They would not possess that much power, right? uh, any lackness if you observe, right? So it was observed. I'm just referring this lackness was observed that no AGM is in place, right? Currently, but DCS has to develop a mechanism of reporting to shareholders as it's required by COCG. That's Code of Corporate Governance, right? That it's required by COCG. Now, employees. Now, employees, right? Now, what could employees do here? What could employees can be asked to do here? What could employees can be asked to do here? So, before flotation or uh, before listing, more employees were unionized, right? More employees were some kind of, I'll say, unionized, right? And DCS was not asked to involve them, right? To involve them, right? And expect them to follow instructions, right? They were not allowed to be in the decision making, and they were allowed to follow the instruction, right? And they were allowed to follow the instruction, right? Now, post flotation and considering new legislation of minimum wage, right? New legislation of minimum wage. I'll say minimum wage and company pensions, right? And mandatory pensions right? Are being introduced. DCS would not only inform the employees, right? DCS would not only inform their employees uh, in but also keep them satisfied, right? But also keep them satisfied. And why to keep your employees satisfied? Why to keep your employees satisfied? It's because the new legislation have gained them much power, right? The new legislation have gained or allowed them with much power. So you have to do that. So see, in this question, you just need to give the post and pre, right? You just need to give the post and pre, right? Any questions till now? Yeah. Uh, before flotation, DCS was managed mostly by shareholder funds, right? Shareholder funds. It was DCS was mostly managed by shareholders fund, right? And had a few borrowings and had few borrowings and had few borrowings, right? So uh, they had the few borrowings here, right? So their power and interest was low. However, post-rotation, the borrowings have gone to much higher level and have raised lenders' power that much that they have placed covenants, right? That they have placed covenants on DCS. So you could assume now that the covenants have been placed, right? This would mean DCS has to take care of their lenders very well, because now they have got that much power that they are not even hesitated in being that they are not even hesitated in being or informing that they are not even hesitated in applying the covenants, right? So now you have to give them appropriate information. You have to give them appropriate information, and that's how this question is also done. Part A is also done. Any questions, guys? The students who are attempting the live question can ask on Zoom, while the recorded ones can text me on WhatsApp. My number is with you, right? If anyone doesn't have my number, just ask admin to send you, and they will. In fact, on my book's backside, it's written, right? Yeah. So last part, but not the least one, right? See, if you are attempting an SBL exam fully, it would give you, if you're teaching an SBL exam fully, it would take around 3 to 4 sessions teaching the topics also. And it would also require so many pages, right? You can just see the pages and my beautiful handwriting that has been established here. Yeah. The last one is criticize CEO and HR's director ethical and professional behavior, right? CEOs and HR's director ethical and professional behavior relating to the design, conduct and reporting to the staff satisfaction survey, skepticism skills. So they have done some unethical word. So whenever the ethics is being asked, the best way to answer is the code of ethics, right? Whenever the ethics is being asked, the best way to answer is the code of ethics. You must be remembering that objectivity, integrity, professional behavior, professional competence, and I'll say confidentiality. So just follow that, right? Just follow that. So now here comes professionally and ethically. There are some issues uh, relating to staff if conducted, right, relating to staff if conducted, I'll say, right, relating to staff satisfaction survey has been conducted, which we would like to highlight, right? I would like to highlight some issues here, right? I'd like to highlight some issues here, right? Uh, such surveys are beneficial for employees, right? Such surveys are beneficial for employees, right? And organizations. Yeah, they are beneficial for employees and organizations, right? They are beneficial for employees and organizations, right? If conducted properly, that's the requirement, right? If conducted properly. If it's not properly conducted, right, then it's not worth it, as it would give employees or organization a better understanding of employees, a better understanding of employees and what they are thinking, right? Just don't uh, focus on how much you are writing. Just write, write, and write. This is the learning phase, right? This is the learning phase, guys. Just write, 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 right? Now, integrity was one of the issue uh, that we faced here. Integrity was one of the issue that we faced here, right? It seems that staff may have been misled, right? Staff may have been misled in that, right? Uh, there were assurances given. There were assurances given that the survey responses, that the survey responses would be anonymous, right? Would be anonymous, but the personal information, but the personal information required gives the impression, required gives the impression that management can identify the respondents, right? So it seems to be integrity issue here, right? Again, the confidentiality could be the same, right? Again, the confidentiality could be the same. We could say due care. I would say professional competence was the issue here of managing this survey, and due care. So professional competence and due care, right? The design of the survey the design of the survey, and the way in which results were presented, the way results were presented, right, may be viewed as unprofessional. Right? It can be viewed as unprofessional, right? And it would surely not have achieved, because we have to apply skepticism, right? So what has been asked to achieve. So it would surely not have achieved what was asked to achieve, right? Confidentiality was the issue for sure. Confidentiality was the issue here for sure. What's that? Fact that some employees were asked, or were identified, I would say. Some employees were asked or were identified and interviewed by managers. So that's probably the unethical one, right? On the negative surveys, right? This act breaks the the fundamental principle of confidentiality, right? It breaks the fundamental principles of confidentiality. What other we could write? We could comment on objectivity, that's independence, right? And what we could write that uh, key areas on which staff showed concerns, right, might have been might have been omitted. It might have been omitted from the survey, and could have dissuaded people, could have dissuaded people, right, from giving negative feedback. So if you're not allowing them to give them negative feedbacks, if you're not allowing them to give them negative feedbacks, this doesn't seems to be this doesn't seems to be an objective survey, right? This doesn't seems to be an objective survey. The behavior could be also discussed here of the manager, professional behavior, that he asked them to switch the job or look for other job. So that's particularly one of the concerns, right? That's particularly one of the concerns, right? So apparently management should not identify staff uh, which gave negative responses, right? And having sessions individually with them. So they should not do that, right? They should not do that. They should not do that, right? As it could be described as unprofessional behavior. As it could be described as unprofessional behavior, right? Some candidates through this might be threatened, right? Or intimidated or intimidated, right? The comments they made at survey. So they could be a possible threat to this, right? Since concluding comments, since staff was asked what was said that it would be anonymous, then identification of negative feedbacks should not be allowed at any level, right? So you asked them and you gave them a conclusion also. So here, finally, after continuous writing, we have completely solved. After continuous writing, we have completely solved the DCS specimen one, right? If there are any queries, you guys can text me, right? There's no problem. I'm available 24/7 for the students, right? I'm available 24/7 for the students, right? Now, the targets. See, the question is done from my side, but not from the student side, right? The question is done from my side, but not from the student side. The question is drafted by me, but the examiner answer that has been given in the PDF, the examiner answer that has been given in the PDF needs to be read. The marking scheme needs to be checked. Then if you want, you can draft some of the requirements, right? And for the next class, what are the targets? My next target is specimen 2. Then my third target is specimen 3. The fourth one is the Insight mock name machine shop. And after that, once we have covered these four questions, then we are surely going on to the theoretical past before going on to the past papers, right? Before going on to the past papers. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the drafting, the SBL world's drafting, right? I have attached each and everything in this PDF in my book and class notes. So I'm sharing it with you. Get that marked right. And it's a request to solve at least requirements by yourself so that you could get the experience and send it to me, send the Word file to me so that I could mark it, I could check it. And once we are fluent in writing, we'll move on to the software and we'll do the practice on the software too, right? So that's just from my side. Take care.